Now, this chart is from the Wall Street Journal, and they've been running a poll now since the mid 1980s on, do you think that people like you and your family have a good chance of improving your standard of living? Now, when the poll started back in, I think it was 1985, 1986, almost three-quarters of Americans agreed with that. At the very peak, 77% of Americans agreed with that at the turn of the new millennium. As of today, just 25% of Americans believe that someone like them can improve their standard of living. Now, when I first looked at this chart, I thought, is this the Trump effect? Is this just people thinking that? Because if you look at, say, for example, the University of Michigan Consumer Confidence Survey, it is broken when you break it down by Democrat versus Republican supporter. Because Democrats think everything is awful, and Republicans are very, very bullish, very, very upbeat. But if you look at this chart, you can actually see that when Trump was elected the first time there, things actually improved, and things have been just as bad under Biden. Well, not just as bad, but similarly as bad. So I just think that this paints a very, very negative picture for America at the coalface of just people losing hope in a better tomorrow, losing hope in the American dream. And I think that's going to have some very, very serious social and economic consequences. And to be completely honest with you, I think if we had something similar here in Australia, I think you would see a deterioration in a similar ballpark to what you're seeing here. Perhaps more so in younger demographics, because there's still the everything is awesome, everything is great here that I think is a lot more prevalent than it is in the US.
Yes, and I will just make the point that I still have quite a few people, particularly younger people, actually, wanting to have a conversation on a one-on-one basis about where to go, what to do. Is it worth trying to make a living in Australia, or are there better alternatives? And what are the factors? And it's interesting to me that some of the people who are having those thoughts are people who grew up in Australia and are absolutely Australian, quite well educated, but they can't see a way of getting ahead. They can't see a way of forming a family. They can't see a way of buying a house. Um, and if actually running for the exit is the solution, that doesn't actually bode well for the people who remain.
No, it doesn't. And just to sort of quantify that issue, so to speak, PropTrack, REA's data arm puts out a report every year on the proportion, sorry, on various percentiles of people by income and what percentile of property by value they can buy. Now, if you go back to the year 2000, which is the end of broad-based housing affordability in Australia, a median earning household could buy the median dwelling. A household in the 80th percentile could buy a house, roughly in the 80th. Sorry, a household in the 80th percentile by income could buy a house in the 80th percentile by value. Today, a median earning household is struggling to buy any house at all, and a household in the 80th percentile is now battling for starter homes and slightly below average, slightly below median homes. So I think that just really illustrates just what's gone wrong here in Australia. You can be a household that's worked very hard, that's saved, that's built multiple income streams, that's worked very hard. Perhaps it's two full-time earners, on a significantly above median income. You've done everything right. Maybe you've even saved a big deposit too. But just based on that type of calculation, you're not going to be able to buy that house that reflects your relative level of affluence by income.
Hmm.
You're going to struggle to afford a house that someone probably bought, not struggle, but you are going to be competing for a house that somebody probably bought on a single income 30 years ago. And that's a huge part of the problem. Because if there's no incentive, if there's no way to getting that more affluent life that that these people arguably very muyou deserve and have achieved in terms of their relative incomes, then a lot of people are going to turn around and say, as you know, like the people you've spoken to, what's the point? What do I do? Do I move overseas? Do I work less because I'm never going to be able to afford the things that I want anyway? Do I just pursue experiences and perhaps a lower quality house instead? And these are all very important, social questions, because if hard work is not going to be reflected in your home, then we've got a really big problem, I think.
Yes, I agree. And interestingly, and this is not again a scientific survey, but over the last little while, I've had a number of conversations with Kiwis who moved from New Zealand to Australia thinking that things will be better in Australia relative to New Zealand. And in each case, they've said to me, that was a mistake, which I think is absolutely fascinating.
Well, I think that's part of the thing. Like if you look at net migration flows in and out of New Zealand over time, for the most part, they do in net terms flow into Australia.
Yep.
But there are those times where things reverse. And I get the impression that if housing affordability doesn't continue to improve in New Zealand, and perhaps the economy starts to recover, whereas ours sort of remains relatively anemic, we could see one of those historic shifts where, everyone goes back to Middle Earth instead.
Exactly. Quite a thought.